Ahmed Badio Baghdadi, and I'm joined by the two men who, hey, Sunday, superb episode from the two men. They carried it. I couldn't make it, unfortunately, but it's Ayub Patel and Uwais Ahmed. Superb work, gents, first and foremost.
Thank you very much.
It was a great piece on the PGMOL. I couldn't say that then.
It's a mouthful, isn't it? Yeah, it's not the easiest acronym. Yeah, exactly.
What does it actually stand for? I still haven't worked out what it stands for.
Professional something.
Yeah.
Must be officials as well in there.
It's a Mickey Mouse organization.
We know where you stand now, but yeah, no, it was a pertinent piece, probably the storyline of the season so far, I think. So
no, for sure. But I think the way you guys handled it and the points you got across, superb, honestly. It
was good.
And I'm glad you actually did drop it and didn't wait for me in that sense. But we, as always, we have today. And today I'd like to share my views on the matter, if you would indulge me on that.
Oh, yeah, very excited to hear your thoughts, Badge. I'm sure they'll be very partisan Liverpool and what have you. So, yeah, no, let's give you the floor, of course.
Anything before I go, because I'm going to go.
Yeah, no.
Anything you want to say, gents?
We're just keen to hear your thoughts.
Going into it, I'm not going to lie. We'll come to the Luis Diaz goal. We'll get to that, but I think initially, these refs this season, forget this season, last season, season before, it could go on and on and on. They do not cover themselves in glory, and I've been going on Twitter over the years and just constantly ranting about the fact that they have zero accountability to these so-called errors that they've been making. I mean, it's just constant. If anything, they're actually consistent with being rubbish. So there is that level of consistency there. The fact that they just, again, the repercussions, they have zero. They don't have to do interviews after the game, so they don't have to. They're not held accountable for what they do. All they seem to do is take a week off. Oh yeah, ref's taken off next week. One of next week's game, and then he's back in the fold. It's unbelievable how many things they get wrong and how many things they get away with. Before we had VAR, if a ref made a mistake, it's fine. It's human error. But in this day and age with VAR, it's actually staggering how much they get wrong. Staggering. And the fact that you don't hear anything about the thought process and how they get to the decisions is just, why would they keep that a mystery? I mean, I know there are people with their theories on the matter as to why. Honestly, at this point, I'm not surprised that people hold such people feel that way, because I mean, how else do they get to some of these bonkers decisions? I'll never know. But I think beginning with that, the Jota one. So the first yellow card is not a yellow card for Diego Jota. I think we all agree on that. But then once you're booked, you've got to be careful with your next challenge, and it's just stupid from him, in my opinion. I think a similar thing happened to Trent in the Newcastle game, where he kind of got bundled over. So technically it was a foul on him, but then he threw the ball away, which now is a yellow card automatically if you do that. And then he gets away with he absolutely gets away with murder when he pulls back Anthony Gordon, I think it was.
Yeah.
But is that not?
That was 100%
about it, but did we not sort of talk about it at the time that maybe the referees had it in his ear that the first one was a mistake, so he's almost leveling it up?
Well, technically, it's not. It's a mistake that he didn't get the free kick, but the fact that he threw the ball away, that's not a mistake. That's correct. He should get a yellow if you do that.
But maybe he was thinking that because he'd missed the original.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Oh, we give him this one, so let's even it out, kind of nonsense. But I mean, it was about as blatant as it gets. It's yellow. It's 100% yellow. So I think with this one, Jota was a bit silly with the second challenge. So I think that was a bit deserved in my eyes. Obviously, the first one wasn't. The second one was. The Curtis Jones one, I heard what you guys had to say about that. I could not disagree more. How can you watch that challenge and think it's not a red card? Bissouma's
Bissouma's
ankle and leg.
I did watch the challenge, but go on.
No, that's what I mean. I'm saying, how can you look at that and think it's not a red? Because I get it. I get the whole angle of there was the intent wasn't there to like hurt the guy. He's come over the ball. Yeah, but even if he has come over the ball, he's still got the guy in a fashion where he's bent, his ankle and leg have bent that way. Now, that's a leg breaker. It genuinely is. Whether it was unintentional or intentional, it's a leg breaker. He has to go for it. There have been challenges that I've seen red that have been not even close to that. Like, with the studs up, but they hit contact like this, and then that's it. There's no follow through, and they've been given as reds. This one, he catches him and he goes like that. So I think for that, I don't see how there's an argument. I know the whole thing was his foot slipped off the ball and he's gone into the guy, but still, I mean, what do you want Bissouma to actually snap his ankle or leg for it to be a red card? I mean, it's a red card all day long. It's the height and the way what he did to his leg. I can't believe this conversation.
So is that what it is? So if that is that the criteria that you use, that if it wasn't, if the impact, let's say, wasn't as severe, so the image when we looked at it right at the end is quite graphic and it's not pleasant to look at. But if it wasn't that bad, you would sort of say that it's not a red. It's purely based on the fact that it the way 100%. That the legs were positioned.
Because there was one, and again, I'll come on to this in greater detail about how they run, how they focus on certain clubs and don't focus on other clubs when it comes to decisions like this. There was one with Sabitzer last season at United. I think he makes contact with, again, studs up, makes contacts with someone's shin, but where if you saw a still of it, and this is how stills can be deceived, well, we all know how deceiving they can be. So if you looked at a still of it, it's like the guy's shin here and his boot like that. And it looks like he's just fully like got him on the shin. Whereas if you saw the actual clip, his foot makes contact, but then that's it. He pulls away. There's zero follow through on it. And I think that's what saved him from getting the red card.
Yeah, and I didn't think it was a red card. I know the incident.
But there was a huge portion, including like media pundits, that were like they ran a flipping whole thing on whether it should be a red or not. Whereas this one, when the opponent's leg's gone like that, I think that's easily deemed to be a red card, in my opinion.
The only thing I disagree with a lot there. There's two aspects. You're right in that the intent is not the determining factor. Yeah,
no, we
accept.
No one's out to injure anyone.
Well, or at least he wasn't. I think there are times when players wouldn't mind leaving a little bit on the opposition. This was no such incident, right? The reason why I disagree with you is that because what when you have two opposing forces, which is the foot coming in, let's say, a horizontal position, which is what Curtis Jones was, borderline horizontal, and you have a planted leg, the only thing that's going to happen with two opposing forces is this kind of contact where the force is coming through the foot. It's hitting Bissouma's shin, and no doubt it's going to make his leg contort in the way that it did and make it look quite egregious and quite bad. So that's just physics in terms of how that's going to happen. If Bissouma, and this is not his fault, by the way, of course, don't misinterpret what I'm saying. If Bissouma's leg was not planted, then that contortion of the bottom lower limb and ankle and foot would not have happened the way it happened, right? It's because his foot was planted that's created this kind of bend, so to speak, which always looks horrible. And it is potential.
All leg breaks are like that, though.
No, for sure. But football is a contact. Yeah, but football. The question is, did Curtis Jones, and this is why Liverpool have appealed it. They will lose this appeal, but they have appealed the red card. Is because what they argue is that it's not used excessive force. And I would ask, was it excessive force? I'm not sure it was excessive force. It slipped over the ball and his foot's ended up.
No, but then we've seen challenges where that contact has happened. Like I've stated, like even if you look at last season when Casemiro got sent off for United, I'm using United examples because obviously I watched them the most, so they're the most
tough. The
ones that come to my mind.
Tough.
I hate that I forget who it was against, but there was a Casemiro one from last season where again he goes like
Southampton.
Yeah, I think he caught an ankle, but it wasn't even. There was no follow through, nothing. The guy went flying up in the air as they do, and that was given as a clean red. Again, if that is your barometer for red, and we saw one for Malo Gusto as well.
But it isn't. You can't use that badge if you argue that referees.
No, because there was no one saying that wasn't a red card at the time. Well, then if you're saying that one's not a red card, then you can't turn around and say that this one is.
Yeah, but I think we
That this one
discussed
isn't.
it.
Sorry.
But I think we discussed it. I'm pretty sure I didn't see that as a red card, just simply because he was sliding through with the
No, but
ball.
and we obviously I get that you didn't say it, but the whole view around it, it wasn't even being questioned.
Yeah,
It was
and
like Casemiro's reckless, his red card, but it wasn't reckless. It just standard slide.
Yeah, and there've been mixed views with this one. Frank Lampard yesterday on Monday Night Football thought it was a red card in the end. And
it is a red card.
That's your view.
But this is what I'm saying. Do you want the guy's leg to break in order for you to give that red?
No, but
somebody has to come to.
Just on that point, it's what Owen was saying to a certain extent. Now, imagine his leg wasn't planted. It was in the same position, but it was hanging. So it was touching the floor, but it's not planted. The impact wouldn't have been as graphic.
It wouldn't have.
Yeah. So therefore...
Then it's not a leg breaker.
So is it purely based on the fact that because his leg was planted,
yep,
that it becomes a red card? If it wasn't planted, so the tackle is exactly the same.
If it wasn't planted,
so you're not penalising the tackle.
The follow through isn't there. Then you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, but the only thing about it is this.
But you can't question the other guy for planting his foot.
No.
I would give a red card. I would give just very quickly. You. What I'm saying about it is, it's a red card if Curtis Jones, through his actions, has endangered the opponent. I think what's happened is. Yeah, but it was a 50-50 ball. No player was in control of that situation.
That doesn't matter. What does that matter?
No, it does matter because it's not a case of he's clearly going to be late. He actually gets a little bit of the ball just whilst Bissouma's also getting a little bit of the ball. It was the actual very definition of a 50-50.
It is a 50-50, right?
Yeah, and as they're dueling for the ball, his foot slipped over the top of it. And what I'm saying is, do I want Bissouma to break his leg? Of course I don't. But there's a difference between a player who has no regard for the opposition and puts him in danger with his own action, as opposed to a natural consequence of what happened. And that's what it was. It was unfortunate. Not every unfortunate incident needs a red card.
But I agree with that. That's why I'm saying he didn't have intent. He didn't have intent to go in there and just like, I'm going to get the man. The intent was, like you said, it was a 50-50. Ball was there to be won, but at the end of the day...
So let me get this right. Bissouma
at the end of the day, he's gone over the ball, whether
his foot's ended
or not, he's gone over it. And he's bent the guy's leg like this. There's no justification for that. There just isn't. But how can you give a yellow for that?
It's in no way. There has to be a reckless element. There has to be. I can't understand. I mean, he was penalised. He got a yellow card, which I thought was absolutely right. It wasn't reckless. That is what my understanding is. That if you're going to give a straight red card, there has to be an element of recklessness. It wasn't reckless in a sense.
Well,
it wasn't even overly aggressive. It just so happened.
In that case, you can argue his foot shouldn't be off the ground either. Then, I mean, there's all sorts of arguments you can make in that sense. The fact that his leg's up there for it to slip off the ball and then go over the ball, that means his legs.
Yeah, but
maybe need to be there.
Yeah, but maybe then you can argue he's not as technically proficient and all that.
Then it gets silly, doesn't it?
You're giving you might be surprised, but the leg is quite a robust thing. Last time I checked, Bissouma did have his leg facing in two different directions, and I've checked the recent reports. He's not broken his leg. It does happen in sports. We just don't see it as often.
Just because he hasn't broken his leg doesn't mean it's not a red card.
Yeah, but honestly, if Curtis Jones was coming in from a distance and went to ground with excessive force, a bit like how Eddie Nketiah went into the Spurs goalkeeper the week before, honestly, if that one was given as a red card, the Eddie Nketiah one, I don't know if you saw it when he went
I saw that, yeah.
He slid in from a mile away, yeah? Now, if he caught Vicario's leg, whether he broke... Honestly, if he had got sent off, I would have been like, he's stupid, because the game before, he'd done it to Jordan Pickford. Now, Pickford slightly put a little bit of extra VAT on it, but in any event, you shouldn't put yourself... Which one was more dangerous, the Nketiah challenge or the Curtis Jones challenge? Curtis Jones challenge. It's obvious it was the Nketiah challenge. No, but which one's more dangerous?
Well, who? Yeah, but who's caught who?
Yeah, but Eddie Nketiah caught the goalkeeper. He got away with the yellow card. It was a more dangerous act.
This is another thing. This is not the first time a red has been given for a challenge like this. It's happened many a time before where you've gone over the ball, whether it's accidental or not. You've gone over the ball and you've caught the guy's shin height. You get sent off. It is what it is. I don't think there's no...
but that's reckless. If you're going shin high, there is a recklessness to it. I think the position Curtis Jones was in, it was almost impossible for him to do anything other than what he did. Now, obviously, his foot rolled over, but there was no malice, there was no recklessness. He wasn't charging in.
Well, if you're going in and his foot isn't up, I can't show you because my foot's down here. But say this is the ground right here.
Yeah.
If he's gone like that, that's one thing. Yeah, his foot can't slip over the ball like that. His foot's up here, so therefore he's already lifted it off the ground, which means there's a chance your studs are going in, whether it slips off or not.
You're basing it off the consequence of Bissouma's leg facing in a couple of different directions, and I don't think that's fair. If his leg hadn't, his foot, Curtis, I'll finish on this. If Curtis Jones' foot had contacted Yves Bissouma's ankle shin on the same position, yet his foot didn't contort in the directions that it did, it wouldn't have been given as a red card. You know that, I know that. It's just because when you freeze frame
it wouldn't have been. No, it's not a freeze frame.
It happens a fair bit, Badge.
It's not a freeze frame. Yeah, I agree. The freeze frames can be deceiving, but you can watch the clip on that one. This is what I'm saying. The difference. That's why I use the Sabitzer thing as an example. You see the freeze frame, and you think he's murdered the guy on the shin. Whereas if you see the clip, he goes like this, and that's it. The contact comes off. It breaks. The contact doesn't break. The contact keeps going, and he goes
couldn't
back.
because he was rolling on the ball, so he couldn't obviously stop.
Which I'm saying, it's not malicious, but at the same time, he could have broke the guy's leg.
But there's nothing in the rules that says if you may break someone's leg, you get a red card. There's nothing in the rules that says that. It's about using excessive force.
Justification.
No, it's about you use that justification to send him off.
But it is excessive. But then that is excessive force, is it not?
Last time
you can only break someone's leg with excessive force.
Yes, and last time I checked, he didn't break his leg.
Oh my God! So sorry. I didn't.
No, but you tell me.
How many red cards are you going to rescind on that?
How can it be excessive? Look at the word. Excessive means to exceed. How could he have exceeded if the guy didn't break his leg? Can't be that excessive, can it?
His leg still contorted this way, bro.
And that's what I mean. He got sent off because of the leg contortion, not because it was a reckless.
Yeah, and why did it contort like that? If
because
I
it's
just
physics.
Go like this, is it going to
physics?
No.
It's just physics.
I've just given you an example of an incident where it doesn't in the same manner. Steads up. So I think that.
Did you see the incident? Just very quickly, did you see the incident that potentially caused Gakpo his injury? His leg also contorts in a different direction. But guess what? It is what it is. It's how it works. It's how it goes.
That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. Someone can get. That's like you saying someone tackling you knee height, but you off the ball getting an injury to your knee by doing something. It wasn't off the ball. It wasn't off the ball. I'm talking about another incident within the Spurs game. But anyways, I don't like the fact that when they did review it on the screen, they start on the freeze frame. I think that's complete BS. You start with the clip. But in this instance, when you roll the clip, it's still incriminating. So I think that for me, that decision's correct.
It's a game of opinions.
I think it's a red. Yeah, of course, it is genuinely.
But it shouldn't be, though.
I mean, that's red.
It is a game about opinions, but this is quite an important sort of point of discussion because this is what the referees obviously are having to do. It shouldn't be about game of opinion. So if it happens that one referee thinks it's sending off, one doesn't, it's just luck of the draw. We shouldn't do. There has to be an element of uniformity. I don't mind fans having differing opinions, but I certainly don't think officials should have differing opinions, or at least there should be very rare times that they differ in terms of their opinions. Because I must confess, I am absolutely with this one, with the Jones one. To me, there has to be an element of recklessness. It wasn't reckless. And just because it ended up where perhaps potentially his leg or ankle could have been broken, that in itself shouldn't be the criteria.
This is not the first time.
Doesn't make them all right.
There's been many an instant. No, but if it's dangerous, it's dangerous, and it is. But listen, we can agree to disagree on this. That's just my views on it.
Yes,
I think the two reds. Obviously, Jota's first yellow was not a yellow. The second one was stupidity. The Jones one, as unlucky as he is still red. The Diaz one is absolutely incredible. Like, I could not believe what I was seeing with that. I think you guys went into it in great depth, so I will not go into such depth. I think you guys covered the points brilliantly, but absolutely embarrassing. If I was a Liverpool fan, I'd be charging that pitch and swinging, because that is when I mean that was just off the replay. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. you don't need lines. You don't need anything. You can clearly see the brothers onside. Hell of a finish. The fact that he's all right, fine. The line's put his flag up, but then for the VAR guys to think they've given the goal and therefore check complete, that is incredible. They're either just having a laugh and doing something else in the booth, or they went off for a whiz and it's just like the game's carried on, because there's no justification for that whatsoever. And there's this rule that apparently once you've cleared it, you can't go revisit it, even if it is 30 seconds later, which is another embarrassing thing. I mean, if it comes to the right decision, what's the bloody issue?
I think if it happens, I will let you finish your thought, Badge, but you're right. If you can intervene quickly enough, it's not going to feel as bad, right? As soon as the Spurs defender takes the free kick, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, as long as nothing material has happened in the game, nobody really cares, do they? Get to the right call. Spurs fans would have felt aggrieved, right? If that happened, Spurs fans would have still felt aggrieved. They'd have pointed to 2 or 3 key incidents this season that they would have pointed, oh, what about this? That kind, which I get. That's tribalism in football. But this was so egregious. Honestly,
yeah,
if it was against Arsenal, and it happened, I would have been comfortable with it, because I'd be like, it's not the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, tribalism. I think everyone's put tribalism aside for this for this particular goal, because this could happen to anyone's club, and it's atrocious. Like,
apart from Moggy, who is he's not bothered at all.
The resident Spurs fan, ladies and gents. I mean, what can you say? What can you say? It's not even incompetency at that point. It's just, I mean, there's a word for it. We won't use it, but I'm sure it's flying around somewhere out there. And how can you blame people for thinking in such a way as well? Because how do you get around to that? I mean, the VAR, the guys in the booth whose job it is to look at it, that is their bloody job. That's a sole job. If you can't do it when called upon, what's the point of having you there? And it's not a case of, even their statement afterwards, it wasn't really apologetic. It was a bit embarrassing, if anything. Again, doesn't put them in good stead. I believe they are releasing the audio to Liverpool Football Club, and then it will become public as well. They would not have, had Liverpool not persisted. So credit to Liverpool in that sense, where they kept pushing for it.
What's your thoughts, Badge, on that? Liverpool came in for some criticism, with regards to them pursuing the matter in quite an aggressive way with their statement and insistence on, keeping the matter in the public eye, escalating it. What's your thoughts?
I think it's absolutely right. Absolutely right. These lot get away with murder too often. Like I say, they have zero accountability for anything. They have a bloody week off, if anything. They get a holiday and then they come back the following week, and then it's another mistake. It's just constant. So I fair play to Liverpool for keep pressing with it. I'm not mad about that statement at all. Good on them, because otherwise it wouldn't have forced their hand. They would not have released that footage. There's a reason they don't do it. There was a few years ago, the Liverpool Spurs game, where I think they were deliberating whether to give Spurs a penalty, and John Moss was the official that day. And there's there's video, but then they've highlighted the audio as well of the conversation John Moss has with the assistant. I think the debate was, if Lovren makes contact with the ball, it's penalty. If Lovren makes contact, it's a penalty. If not, it's an offside. They do not come to a conclusion at all. Fair play to the linesman. He kept stressing that you can't give it if you don't know. John Moss just asked the liner, then he asks the fourth official any ideas, or the guy on the replay. Doesn't get any clear advice, and he goes, I'm going to give a penalty. He blows and gives Spurs a penalty. I'm like, that is unbelievable. And this is why they don't release that kind of audio, because that is the level of judgment we're making here. I think it's insane, absolutely insane. So I hope there's some severe repercussions for him, honestly. The other side of this I wanted to tackle was, this is only such a big issue right now, and I agree it's a horrendous decision, and that is partly why it's such a big issue. Why been blown up to what it is more so than other decisions that have been just not just as bad, but awful. This is only happening because it's happened to Liverpool, and the other side, the only other team that would like get this kind of reaction again from that decision is City. Them two are generally, I'm not saying this as, and there's no bitterness here or anything like that, but if anyone gets good treatment from media and press a lot of the time, I think City and Liverpool, from the big teams, are the two that are likely to get that. There have been a myriad of pathetic decisions over the last few seasons. I mean, if you look back to look how Villa are flying right now, but they should be in the Championship. They should be in the Championship because that goal line tech that didn't happen to work that game where they survived. That's an unbelievable decision. A day after, you weren't even hearing fallout about that, and that was, think about how huge that is. Last season,
it was the day after the COVID return. After the games,
incredible. That they should be in the Championship right now. Instead, they're flying in Europe. Last season, Liverpool Spurs, the Liverpool and Spurs game, the classic that ended 3-2. We had, where is it? Yeah, Diego Jota, absolutely big booting one of the Spurs players in the face. I think it was what's his name?
I think it might have been Oliver
Skip.
Oliver Skip,
yeah. I think the Undertaker would be proud of that big boot to his face. Again, not punished. How you look at that and think that's not a red, I will never know. Goes on to score the winner. In the same game, Konate dragged down Richarlison in the area as well. The thing is, because if you weren't to know better and didn't know these incidents occurred, it wasn't even talked about after. It was just like they were talking about how good the game was. It was a classic, this, that, the other. At that time, it cost Spurs, but again, it wasn't as big an issue. For Man City, the Rashford goal against them last season at Old Trafford, my God, that went on for 2 weeks.
Just very quickly on that, should that have been a goal?
I don't want to go down that road.
It's okay. We've got our answer. Carry on.
But the Rashford goal talked about for like 2 weeks after. It was just non-stop. Wherever you looked, it was outrage about it. This season, Nathan Ake against Fulham scores from his header where Kanji was clearly obstructing the keeper. Absolutely zero fallout because it affected Fulham, and no one gives one about. Well, no disrespect to Fulham fans, but there's not such a big hoo-ha around them. So nothing has come of it. What I'm saying is there's been ridiculous decisions constantly throughout the last 2 years. This is only huge because it's happened in a game that you'd call a big game between Spurs and Liverpool, and it's affected Liverpool. So I don't like how it's only a big issue if it affects certain clubs. It's highlighted more, whereas other clubs, I mean, there's been ridiculous decisions all season. There was one in the a Brentford game where they were doing VAR for an offside, and they actually measured the lines from a wrong clip. It was further in the play. It was previous in the play. But again, you don't hear anything about it, like any huge fallout, because it's not so much a team that like the whole nation would care about so much. It'd be it's more of a Brentford exclusive thing. But I think the fact that it's happened with the so-called, I'd say, media darlings in Liverpool or City, they get blown out of proportion. So I'm glad something is happening, but I don't like the fact that it's only such outrage because it was a big game, and B, it happened to one of the two. I don't know how
I've got some
about that, but
I've got some strong thoughts, but I'll let Ayub take it away.
I mean, I don't know where to start. So I really don't know where to start. I'm not a Liverpool fan, even though I have an affinity and I like Liverpool. I'm not a Liverpool supporter, but I just think in terms of magnitude, in terms of scale, this was. I mean, it really. I mean, we've talked about it many, many times over the last few days that it transcends club allegiances. What we saw here is perhaps it should be a watershed moment. I don't subscribe to the philosophy that somehow Liverpool, perhaps I would agree with Manchester City. I think certainly with Manchester City, sometimes I do sort of tend to think that it seems to be the media darlings. Not sure about Liverpool, but in this instance, it's purely based on what we witnessed. I don't think it's anything to do with the fact that it's Liverpool. I think most football fans who have an appreciation of the game should be outraged.
All
and
right,
it
let me
shouldn't
ask
really
you.
matter.
Let me ask you this then. You are right, and that's why I said the decision was that horrific that I think everyone agrees that something needs to be done about it, and that does play a factor. But then, say in this game, in that Liverpool Spurs game, if the same thing that happened in the Brentford game happened, where they did the lines, they gave an offside for a clip which was earlier in the play, so they measured it at the wrong part. It wasn't even at the right part of the video. If that happened in this game, equally as horrendous. If it was disallowed on that basis, would it be equally as horrendous?
What in terms of what if it happens to Brentford? Is that what you're saying?
No. So the goal that was the way the offside was checked on the Brentford game was it was an earlier passage of play in that move, and that's where they drew the lines and gave the off. If Liverpool's goal was disallowed in that manner, would it be as outrageous as this Luis Diaz one? Because they were measuring it from a different period of the play. So basically, it wasn't the correct. It wasn't when the ball was released to the attacker, and it wasn't in the right period of the play.
I'm just going to comment on obviously the incident at the weekend because
I get that, but I'm saying would it be as outrageous if it happened?
I don't know. What do you think?
I'm asking you.
I don't think so.
It wouldn't be as outrageous.
No.
If they gave her offside from a clip that was a bit earlier than when the pass was played and the goal happened.
No, as I said, I don't want to. This
you know this classic
what the
answer is,
no,
and you don't want to say
what
it.
I don't want to do. No, what I don't want to do, and
because
this is
I'm
always
not even
the
sure
danger.
You're aware of the Brentford one.
What the danger always is this. What about free?
It's not what about free. It's a correct example.
But the danger is always it's you start, and I think some fans are doing that where they start drawing incidents that happened previously. This one is just, for me, it's an incident that happened. That's what I'm focused on. I think it was outrageous. It hopefully now is an opportunity for the game and all football fans to perhaps unite and sort of say, right, if we're going to have VAR, something needs to change. So I'd rather sort of focus on that rather than look back at games and say, well, that was wrong, this was wrong. I think you're right to bring it up. Absolutely. I think like Aki, absolutely right. These are incidents that you should be talking about. But what are we going to do now? This incident, to me, it's a game between two teams that are potentially fighting to be number one in the league.
That doesn't give you more importance than any other team in the league. The teams are playing for their own goals. Like a game for Brighton to survive is just as vital as it is for City or Liverpool to win.
A fair point, legitimate point. Yeah. I can't disagree with that.
Badge, you'll notice how I didn't interrupt you whilst you were spouting all that. I mean, you made some good points, to be fair, especially with regards to the fact that this, and you're right, this does transcend allegiances in terms of Liverpool pursuing this, right? But I will come on to that shortly. But Badge, I will take some of your points and I will take them on board and push back. You question whether or not it's Liverpool, because it's Liverpool, this is being made up to be, because it's one of the biggest clubs in the world, that this is being made more of a story than it would have been if it would be Brentford or a Nottingham Forest, right? Or a Burnley. You're right. Welcome to the big bad world. That's how it works. The big clubs move the needle. The same way in the fact that the big companies move the needle in kind of,
You're right. Again, with what you're saying, I'm just saying there are other big teams in this league as well.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Arsenal, United, it wouldn't happen for them.
No, that
genuinely wouldn't.
You say that though, but I think Arsenal got a fair deal of sympathy with the Ivan Toney incident last year. And the issue that I have with what you said about decisions, look, there are subjective decisions. Even if you look at the Johan Wieser penalty incident against Nottingham Forest, I think it's a penalty. Some may think it's not. But in the end, it's a subjective call. Ayub makes the right point in the first segment that maybe these shouldn't be subjective. It should be open and shut, because I thought the Wieser one was a clear penalty when Turner impeded him. But Badge, if we're going to get into this incident and that incident, Liverpool fans will also pull up and say, what about Tyrone Mings' challenge against Gakpo? I think it was earlier this season with the high foot. You spoke about the high foot from Jota against Skip. What about McAllister getting a red card which was rescinded? Yes, Liverpool went on to win the game against Bournemouth, but they might not have. It could have cost them. The red card was rescinded. What I'm trying to get at is...
No, but you're right. But they're the key points in that. They
No, but
still went on to win,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it got rescinded.
yeah, but they lost.
If they hadn't gone on to win, you would have been seeing it everywhere. Whereas if it happened to a club
and
of a Leicester, no one cares.
But Badge, the big clubs should move the needle. They get the loudest voice in the room. That's how it works, and that's how it should be. I don't have a qualm with that. Are they any more important than any of the other teams from a league integrity perspective? Absolutely not.
But I'm not even like, I know the example I use is the Brentford thing, but I'm not even saying like the lesser clubs. I don't think Arsenal or United definitely don't get that treatment. I mean, it goes the complete polar opposite way. That's why I'm not mentioning them. But I don't think Arsenal, Chelsea, I don't think these teams get that kind of thing as well. Yeah, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying when it happens, City and Liverpool, if it happens to them, it will actually be a thing in the media for a while. Whereas another team, if it happens to them,
but
the next day you move on.
Fair, but look, they are the premier clubs over the last 5 years. I don't really have qualms about it too much. And the difference between this decision and others was this was a factually incorrect application of the rules. I mean, as in, it was a factually, nobody disputes, nobody's saying today that it was actually offside. When it's a factual misinterpretation of the situation, that's always going to move the needle more than the subjective, where you'll always find 2 or 3 people. We disagreed on the Curtis Jones incident. So look, I think the big clubs, that's how it works. I don't have any qualms with that so much. The only thing I would say is there's been a little bit of talk after the VAR piece about the incident over the weekend, about how, you know, should they have released the audio, clubs wouldn't be as forthcoming if we requested, let's say, cameras in the dressing room and stuff. So why are they insisting so much? And I sometimes think the media does this, where they overplay the importance of other parties. Like, what, in my opinion, without players and clubs, you don't have a game. Without the fans, you don't have a business. Without referees and officials, you might not have in-game control. But there's a significant hierarchy in terms of who's more important in this kind of game of football. And yes, without a referee, we don't have a game, but it's not the same. Let's not overplay the importance of what the official represents. That, well, players make mistakes all the time, so the referees make the mistakes. It's not the same. It's absolutely not the same. And don't ever equate referees and officials to players and clubs. Players and clubs will always be the single most important participants in any sport. You don't have a sport without them. So I don't understand that. Also, I do have to just mention this. I was a bit not disappointed, but Gary Neville talking about how it's dangerous for Liverpool to go down this path, and so that sorry should be respected. I'll tell you why I'm disappointed with Gary Neville, because it's hypocritical. If it's a cause that he feels strongly about, like the Manchester United ownership, he'll talk about how they should be selling, they're treating the club like a toy, we should be protesting and all the rest of it. And fine, he's a club legend if he wants to have that view. But surely a set of owners owning a club, they've got the right to do what they want. In the end, if you own something, if I own a house, if I own a car, they've got the right to do what they want. If you feel so strongly about it, buy the club, put a bid in so you can do what you want with this. I don't understand this hypocrisy with Gary Neville. If Liverpool feel so strongly about it that they've been wronged, and you agreed, Badge, that are they doing it for the greater good? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're just doing it because they feel aggrieved. Fine, whatever their intentions might be. But it's in the best interest of everybody that, to your point, Badge, and you made it very well, that if they don't pursue this aggressively, you're not going to put the pressure on the PGMOL and the officials to improve. You're not going to get anything done. Protest should be uncomfortable. You're only ever going to get anything done by making things uncomfortable and to challenge the status quo. So that's where I stand. I think Liverpool did the right thing. Whether it's done through emotion or anger or frustration at the weekend's events, fine, whatever that kind of driving force might be. But this idea that sorry should be respected, they have respected the apology. But what they're saying is we're not going to be quiet little boys and sit in the corner.
I mean, it was a sorry excuse, really. It wasn't even, would you call that an apology?
It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an apology. And who cares for the apology? Just do better. You know, exactly. To your point, Badge, it was their only job. So, I mean, I don't understand it. I think Liverpool did the right. Will they suffer in the short term if officials feel like, you know, Liverpool are the kind of so-called enemy? We shall see. But in the end, that was too egregious a call for us not to have some transparency and 100%. Greater accountability. Otherwise, nothing will ever improve.
I think claims of, not by us, by other people, of cheating and all the conspiracies and all that, you can see why they come up. Because if you aren't allowed to hear their thought process, and they like resist to release that kind of audio, and the fact that they rejected, by the way, using that automated or semi-automated system that they used at the World Cup, Euros, that Serie A currently used, that completely takes argument out of it. I think it's great. I don't know why they don't implement that here, but that again raises question marks to people. Why don't they use that? And then you see decisions like this, and then you get people like you saying it's a fix.
Just two things on that. Obviously, it was the clubs that voted down the semi-automated offsides, and secondly, this goal on Sunday, or non-goal, I should call it, that didn't really center on the semi-automated piece, did it? This was a communication issue, which resulted the officials, if the explanation is correct, also thought it was a goal. It's just they communicated it incorrectly. So you're right. It's semi-automated, takes the human element out of it, but it was more communication issue than, let's say, a close call.